Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Cheva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayet Shinmata Sukatha Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Hridayanta Histohi Abhadrani Vidanoti Subhissatam Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavat Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Nashtiki. I am reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 29 and verse text 61. Text 61. Shayanam imam utsrijya swasantam purusho yatha karmatmani ahitam bhungte tadashene tarenava. Synonyms: Shayanam, lying down on a bed. Imam, this body. Utsrijya, after giving up. Swasantam, breathing. Purusha, the living entity. Yatha, as. Karma, activity. Atmani, in the mind. Ahitam, executed. Bhungte, enjoys. Tadrashena, by a similar body. Itarena, by a different body. Va, or. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The living entity, while dreaming, gives up the actual living body. Through the activities of his mind and intelligence, he acts in another body, either as a god or a dog. After giving up this gross body, the living entity enters either an animal body or a demigod's body on this planet or on another planet. He thus enjoys the results of the actions of his past life. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Although the root of distress and happiness is the mind, intelligence, and ego, a gross body is still required as an instrument for enjoyment. The gross body may change, but the subtle body continues to act. Unless the living entity gets another gross body, he will have to continue in a subtle body or a ghostly body. One becomes a ghost when the subtle body acts without the help of the instrumental gross body. As is stated in this verse, Shainam imam usrijya swasantam. The gross body may lie on a bed and rest, and even though the machinery of the gross body is working, the living entity may leave, go into a dream, and return to the gross body. When he returns to the body, he forgets his dream. Similarly, when the living entity takes another gross body, he forgets the present gross body. The conclusion is that the subtle body, mind, intelligence, and ego creates an atmosphere with desires and ambitions that the living entity enjoys in the subtle body. Actually, the living entity is in the subtle body. Even though the gross body apparently changes, even though he inhabits the gross body on various planets. All the activities performed by the living entity in the subtle body are called illusory because they are not permanent. Liberation means getting out of the clutches of the subtle body. Liberation from the gross body simply involves the transmigration of the soul from one gross body to another. When the mind is educated in Krishna consciousness or higher consciousness in the mode of goodness, one is transferred either to the upper heavenly planets or to the spiritual world, the Vaikuntha planets. One therefore has to change his consciousness by cultivating knowledge received from Vedic instructions from the Supreme Personality of Godhead through the disciplic succession. If we train the subtle body in this life by always thinking about Krishna, we will transfer to Krishna Loka after leaving the gross body. This is confirmed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Janma karma chamev divyam evam yo veti tattvata tattva deham punar janma naiti mam eti so Arjuna. One who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, takes birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode, O Arjuna. Bhagavad Gita 4:9. Thus, the change of the gross body is not very important, but the change of the subtle body is important. The Krishna consciousness movement is educating people to enlighten the subtle body. The perfect example in this regard is Ambrish Maharaj, who always engaged his mind on the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. Savai mana Krishna padaravindraya. Similarly, in this life, we should always fix our mind on the lotus feet of the Krishna, who is present in his arch vigraha, the incarnation of the deity in the temple. We should also always engage in his worship. If we engage our speech in describing the activities of the Lord and our ears in the hearing about his pastimes, and if we follow the regulative principles to keep the mind intact for advancing in Krishna consciousness, we shall certainly be elevated to the spiritual platform. Then at the time of death, the mind, intelligence, and ego will no longer be materially contaminated. The living entity is present, and the mind, intelligence, and ego are also present. When the mind, intelligence, and ego are purified, all the active senses of the living entity become spiritual. Thus, the living entity attains his Satchidanand form. The Supreme Lord is always in his Satchidanand form. But the living entity, although part and parcel of the Lord, becomes materially contaminated when he desires to come to the material world for material enjoyment. The prescription for returning home back to Godhead is given by the Lord himself in Bhagavad Gita 9.34. Manmanabhav madbhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru mam evashyasi yuktevam atmanam mat parayana. Always think of me and become my devotee. Worship me and offer your homage unto me. Being completely absorbed in me, surely you will come to me. Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pasaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tinamini Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschat Deshatarine Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. I seek blessing from all the assembled Vaishnavas here, and I thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to purify myself by reading these Bhagavad text. And please forgive me for any of the shortcomings that I may have in my speech or summary. So in this text or even previous text, Narad Muni is discussing with King Parshina Barhi about how the body changes from one gross body to another, and how subtle body plays a prominent role in getting the next body. So the subtle body, which includes mind, intelligence, and ego, is really responsible for the soul's movement from one gross body to another. At the time of death, the subtle body carries the soul to another gross body based on the nature of the mind's thoughts. And this we have seen in the story of Puranjana, who was born as a woman in his next life birth because he was too much engrossed in thinking about his wife. So in his next body life, he was born as a woman. Anyway, so at the time of death, the subtle body carries the soul to another gross body based on the nature of the mind's thoughts. The subtle body carries the traces of past experiences. Liberation from the subtle body is the key for actual liberation from the material existence and attain a higher state of existence. This concept of subtle body migration emphasizes the importance of spiritual development or God consciousness or Krishna consciousness, which can help the living entity to get out of the cycle of birth and death. Actual liberation means getting out of the clutches of the subtle body. Liberation from the gross body simply involves the transmigration of the soul from one gross body to another. The individual soul is transmigrating from one body to another, and his present body and present activities are the background of his next body. If the living entity is in Krishna consciousness, he will be transferred to Krishna Loka in the spiritual world. So the mind, intelligence, and ego are always engaged in an attempt to dominate material nature. According to the subtle body, one attains a gross body to enjoy the objects of one's desires. According to the activities of present body, one prepares another subtle body. And according to the subtle body, one attains another gross body. This is the process of material existence. However, when one is spiritually situated and does not desire a gross body or subtle body, he attains his original spiritual body. In the subtle body, the mind is predominant, and therefore, if one's mind is always absorbed in devotional service or in remembering the activities or the lotus feet of the Lord Krishna, he is to be understood to have already changed his present body and become purified. Lord Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 10:10, Tesam satat yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogantam yena mam upayantite. To those who are constantly devoted to serving me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. So this verse signifies that one can get rid of material existence and approach Krishna through devotional service to the Lord. So really, also the meaning of this verse is, one can get rid of their subtle body and reach to spiritual planet associated with Krishna. In other words, one has also the chance to get rid of subtle body and achieve true liberation from the repeated birth and death. Also in Bhagavad Gita 18:55, Krishna says, Bhaktyamam abhijananti yaman yas chasmi tatvatah tatmam tatvato gyatva vishate tat anantaram. One can understand me as I am, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, only by devotional service. And when one is in full consciousness of me, by such devotion, he can enter into the kingdom of God. So entering kingdom of God means one will get rid of one's subtle body, obviously. So these are some of the Krishna's teaching in this regard. These verses, they signify the importance of devotional service to, get out from this cycle of birth and death in this material world. Also, Krishna has talked about this, change of gross body from one body to another in text 8 of chapter 15, which says, Shariram yad avapnoti yad chapi utkramatishvara grihatvetani sanyati vayur gandh nivashayat. The translation of this verse is, the living entity in the material world carries his different conceptions of life from one body to another as the air carries aromas. Thus, he takes one kind of body and again quits it to take another. So I think I'll close here. Thank you very much, devotees.